Okie doke. So the first of the four actual topics, and really, actually, the onus is on you here to do the reading. Okay, and as I'll explain a bit later, you'll each focus on one of the four topics mainly, although you should have a quick look at the other three as well, and then you'll work in groups. Okay, so first topic, natural resource scarcity. And we can trace concerns about natural resource scarcity all the way back to the 1860s and probably further back as well. But William Stanley Jevons wrote about a book called The Coal Question, which you can read online. It's super fun to have a look at. I would recommend strongly that you have a quick look. Yeah, but Jevons argued that exponential growth in resource use, or coal use especially, was obviously unsustainable given that we had a finite stock. And that's pretty obviously true, right? But then he claimed that the British therefore faced a choice between brief greatness and longer continued mediocrity. So he was basically saying we can go full out with our current way of extracting more and more coal. But then in that case, very soon, or pretty soon, it'll run out and our brief period of greatness will be over. Okay, and basically there'll be a societal collapse. Okay, or we can have longer continued mediocrity. So this coal is then crucial according to him, and if we slow down the extraction rate so that we can keep extracting for a long time, then that'll prevent society developing. Okay. And lots of individuals and groups have followed Jevons with similar kinds of analysis. Okay. And I'm not going to survey different people, analyses, and so on. I just want you to focus on perhaps the most famous and influential analysis, which was the work led by Dennis Meadows. Well, I don't know if that's really fair, actually. There's Donella Meadows there as well, who I guess is his wife, or was his wife. Anyway, there was a group with Dennis Meadows and Donella Meadows and some others who ended up publishing this famous book, The Limits to Growth, which is also downloadable, as you can see following this link. So the Limits to Growth team constructed a big computer model. Well, not big by modern standards. They constructed a computer model which impressed people an awful lot at the time, in which we are faced by strict limits on stocks of essential natural resources, including both land for farming. I'm not actually sure that's true. I'm not sure there was land is actually in the model. That could be part of your task, those of you who look at this. And minerals for industrial production. And there are no mechanisms inbuilt in the economic system to temper or slow down the use of these resources as they start to run out. I'm not really sure that's quite true either, actually. When did I write this? But if you look, those of you who look at this material, you will see. Okay. They write up their results in their report, The Limits to Growth, which is, as I said, downloadable. So those of you with this task should be looking at this pretty carefully. Especially one particular chapter, I think it's chapter 3. As both labor productivity and population increase, extraction also increases, and with the finite resources, we accelerate towards the precipice, which, in their analysis of the early 70s, is reached in the baseline model in 2011. Okay, so I've added, this is basically a reproduction of their figure 35, although to make it clearer, I've redrawn it and I've taken out some of the variables, and I've also added this guideline here, which just to tell you exactly where we are at this point when everything goes pear-shaped. So this is the rate of resource extraction, which starts off very high and then goes down and down. Sorry, no, this must be, no, it's not the rate of resource extraction, it's the remaining resource stock, isn't it? Yeah, this must be the remaining resource stock. So we're starting at a lot of 100%, so to speak, in 1900, and then the rate of extraction goes up and up, the stock nosedives, and then of course it levels off at close to zero. Why does it not go all the way to zero? It's because they actually assume that increasing extraction costs with sort of depth of the resource, which makes a lot of sense. And so the stuff that is left here is just too difficult to extract. Okay, so what happens as this nosedives? Basically the economy grinds to a halt. Okay, when this starts flattening off, then it's harder, then there's lower and lower resource flows, natural resource flows into the economy, which means it's hard to produce industrial output, which falls. It's hard to grow food, food production falls. And before long, here we've got loads of food per person and population is going up. But this is a Malthusian model, right? So if people have enough food, the population grows. When they get to it, the food production per capita drops below some level, population also collapses. Okay, people don't have enough to eat. And this, according to this, then obviously here industrial production collapses, food production collapses, but we still apparently have enough to eat because population is still going up. But at some point we have so little to eat that population falls. Okay, so this was their baseline prediction in 1972. So how does this actually work? And I'm not going to take you through that, okay? So those of you who focus on this, I want you to look at the report, try and work out what the structure of the model is, how does it work, and how you're going to explain that to your peers in the class, okay? And then I want you to look at an article by Robert Solow, Is the End of the World at Hand, which I've also linked to here. Solow is a Nobel Prize winner in economics, and he wrote this article in 1973 basically in response to the Limits to Growth report, and he claims that they've missed out a lot of crucial economic mechanisms, okay, which when we allow for those mechanisms, he claims that this completely changes what we expect to happen. So he's not denying that resources are finite, or non-renewable natural resources are finite, but he's saying when the stocks of some particular resource start running out, economic mechanisms are going to kick in and we won't just fall off the cliff. Okay. Okie doke. And I think that's it. So this is a relatively simple one in a way. You've got two sources that I want you to look at mainly, but of course you can pull in material from other sources as well. But it is quite challenging. The Limits book, it's it's a fairly long book. It's fairly hard to get your head around what's going on. Solow, this is just a fairly short article, but there's some quite challenging ideas that I want you to try and get your heads around. Okay. So that is that for natural resource scarcity